Hey, Shalom Akim, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakak Kodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders, great millstone for teaching us his truth. Citations to the sincere Akim and Aqua. Listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai, back in here with another quick and Lord's will, as always, an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I'm just going to do a little bit of quick exhortation in regards to the ant and the importance, of labor, hard work, and so on and so forth. Just a little bit of exhortation here about the ant. The ant is, so I went out to Google, and it says the ants are known for being hardworking and considered one of the nature's hardest working animals. They are always busy, and they are known for their strength and organization. So here, lower down, it says other facts. It says ants are very intelligent, remarkably cooperative with one another, are instinctively ants instinctively gather food and supplies for the future. And the moment I read this, I was thinking about Joseph too, in his account and his story, putting forth that action plan, in terms of actually trying to acquire supplies and food, when that time of famine was going to come, right? And it's pretty much what you really think about it. It's kind of like the same sentiments that we're doing, right? We're kind of storing up spiritual, riches, for a time of famine, essentially, right? Lower down as well, it says ants have been cultivating crops and livestock for longer than humans have existed, right? So, just a little bit of exhortation in regards to, the ant, and in regards to labor. And then sometimes, there are going to be moments where, you don't always feel like 100%, but, you continuously have the mentality to actually continue to labor regardless. And at the same time, also, we don't really have the privilege of essentially, being taken care of, right? We kind of have to essentially supply our needs, gather equipment, you know, um, we have to set up the equipment, invest in tools, for our camp and so on and so forth, all for the edification of the body, basically all for the edification of the sheep, right? So what I want to do is just get a couple precepts, and Lord's will, this would be an edifying lesson, right? So I want to start off with the book of Proverbs. Okay, this is Proverbs 6:6. And it says, "Go to the ant, O sluggard, and consider her ways, and be wise." And says, take a lesson from the ants in the NLT. "You lazy bones, learn from their ways and become wise." Because, just as I was reading earlier, you know, it's a mentality, of constantly, essentially laboring, right? Verse 7, and it says, "Which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provided her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When thou when wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall poverty come upon one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man. Right? In verse 11, it says, then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber, right? So we don't want to be essentially, destitute, you know, especially in times of trouble, right? So, just it shows the importance of laboring. That's why the apostles have been kind of like pushing and exhorting to constantly push out that vibration of continuously pushing videos and edification daily, right? And sometimes you don't always feel comfortable. It doesn't always feel good, but it really is all for our benefit at the end of the day anyway, right? Because not all the times, not every day is going to be super 100%, right? So let me go to the book of Acts. So this is Acts chapter 18. I'll start at verse I'll just read verse 3. The first 3 is just, here's the point, and it says, and because he was of the same craft, he abode with them and wrought. For their occupation, they were tent makers, and Paul lived with them in the NLT, and lived and worked with them, for they were tent makers just as he was, right? So Paul, and I was reading this also because in these times we don't really have the luxury of essentially being taken care of. We kind of have to constantly we have to have like essentially like a you can call it like a job on the plantation, and then we have to kind of like even continue to exhort ourselves to be able to essentially push this edification, right? Because it's it's a labor, right? It's a constant labor. We're troubled on every side, but the scriptures say that we have this treasure in earthen vessels, right? So it's nothing more refreshing to essentially you go through a very, very tough day, and you can click on the apostles and elder or another brother's lesson or so on and so forth, and it offers some sort of edification to be able to like kind of keep the fire going, right? Because the scriptures say that when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren, right? And one of the things we do need is strength in these times, right? And that's the importance, that's the benefit, that is the beauty of this constant push and this exhortation of constant laboring, right? It's very refreshing to actually have access to this, because sometimes some days we do go through those moments where we have like like a thorn in our side, and or maybe even like that spirit of like idleness kind of falls upon us, but constantly being able to continuously go forth and actually push forth that vibration of constantly edifying the church, basically, right? It's very, very beneficial. And yes, I know we don't you know like I said before, we don't have that luxury of being taken care of. So in these times, in this captivity, where we are essentially subject to payments, we have to make sure a roof is over our heads. Got to take care of, if you have a woman, if you do that, you take care of her. You got children, you got to take care of them, and you got to take care of the look after the sheep too, right? Constantly feeding the flock, so to speak, right? That's the importance of this, these constant lessons and videos and exhortation. You develop the attitude of like like the ant I was reading about earlier. As a matter of fact, really the attitude is the attitude of Yahushai, because let me get that account. I think it's in Luke here. Okay, this is Luke chapter 22. This is verse 52. The point is in 53, and it says, "And Yahushua said unto the chief priests and captains of the temple, excuse me, and the elders which come to him, come ye, sorry, excuse me, be ye come out, and as against a thief with swords and staves," Yahushua speaking, "I was daily, when I was daily with you in the temple, ye stretched forth no hands against me, but for this is your hour and the power of darkness," right? So, Yahushua had that mentality, of constantly, essentially laboring, especially when he was young and his parents were, looking for him, and I think it was about 3 days, right? And essentially he kind of like he checked his mother in that account, right? And what he was doing, he had that spirit upon him, because he was confounding all these people, of these different doctors, and all these people that have like quote unquote high positions in the world, right? And that's pretty much the same spirit we come in also, because we're seen as lowly. Well, we are lowly basically. We look as lowly. We're seen as the offscouring of the world, like the scriptures say. And people come up and they pass by, and they might push forth these other doctrines that they believe in when it comes to like Christianity or Islam, or all these other doctrines that people normally believe in. And essentially through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shah, we're tearing these things into cold cuts, and that is the beauty of of labor, right? You're actually able to bring these false doctrines to the obedience of a Mashiach Yahushua, right? Like the scriptures say, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High, to the pulling down of strongholds, right? That is another benefit of being a constant laborer, right? You go over things, you try to get into, read new books. Like I'm talking about read new books in the scriptures, go into the stories. The stories are, you're edifying to actually enrich you, when you're going through moments of trouble, and, you're able to actually, have a discourse, right? And actually show forth that labor, when you're out on the highways and byways and you speak, right? It all shows the different aspects and the importance of like, constantly and, laboring basically, right? So what I want to do, I'm going to go back to Acts, because I mentioned the point about, pretty much, we don't have the privilege in these times of being taken care of, right? But this is something that the Apostle Paul said, and it really stuck out to me. And that's kind of like the same mentality that we adopt, right? We don't beg. We're not. That's another thing. Also, I was also meditating on. We're not in that spirit of begging Jake for money. We don't have like a straw hat, with bills, at the camp, and begging Jake to give us their spare change, and give us their $5 bill, and so on and so forth, right? And this is really all for Jake's benefit. That's really one of the reasons that we're constantly we're out there also, is for Jake to actually turn back to the Heavenly Father, right? But Jake doesn't actually show any sort of appreciation for this constant laboring, right? First and foremost, with the apostles and the elders on down, right? Because they've been laboring for such a long time, like decades right now, right? And Jake doesn't show that appreciation, for that manna, right? That bread, right? Just like they didn't show appreciation for when they were in the wilderness. right? What did they say? All we have, as a matter of fact, let me read that first. I don't want to go too off topic, but what's that? Numbers. Then I'll come back to the point about laboring. Okay, this is Numbers 11. I'll start at verse 5, and it says, "We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers, and the melons, and the leeks, and the onions, and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all besides this manna before our eyes." Right? And I wanted to read this because to show that it's not like, we didn't have anything to eat at all. We're giving food, Jake, to be able to digest, in these times through these different epistles, excuse me, through these different lessons and exhortation, and then also us being on the highways and byways, week in and week out, right? But Jake doesn't show any appreciation for it. In the NLT, it says, verse 6, "But now our appetites are gone. All we ever see is this manna," right? So it's not like they didn't have food to eat. Jake has food to eat, but Jake is just very, very unappreciative for what the Lord is doing. So let me go back to that account in Acts. So this is Acts 20, verse... I'll start at verse 33, and it says, I have coveted no man's silver or gold or apparel," right? So we're not in that spirit of essentially, having a basket, or even as another thing also too, even charging for breakdowns. We're not in that spirit of, how do you call that service? Basically, it's a service that, you could, people can essentially, I guess, I don't know if it's Cash App, but basically, like, if you put on a person's, like, the videos are monetized. Like, we don't monetize our videos. Like the scriptures say, I believe it was Howard Shaw that said this on, it's freely given, it's freely received, and it's freely given, right? Verse 34, and it says, ye yourselves know that these hands of mine, that these hands have ministered unto my necessities and to them that were with me. In the NLT, it says, "You know that these hands of mine have worked to supply my own needs and the needs of those who were with me," right? And that's very true. If we need equipment, we put our heads together, as brethren, and we see, okay, what do brothers need? What does the camp need? So, the essentially the message and the exhortation continues to go out, right? Because that's really the objective anyway, right? And this is all for Jake's benefit, but like going back to the precept I brought up earlier, Jake does not appreciate the bread. They don't appreciate Yahushai, and they don't appreciate the Lord, what the compassion that the Lord is actually doing, right? So, without taking heed to the understanding, they're going to know death by pain. They're going to know what it's like to be, in a literal famine, because they didn't hearken unto the words of the Heavenly Father, right? Verse 35, and it says, I have showed you all things, how that so laboring ye ought to support the weak, and remember the words of our Lord Yahushai, how he said, Yahushai speaking, it is more blessed to give than to receive, right? So, we're giving, we give up our lives, basically. We don't have, essentially a continuing city, but, we seek one to come, right? We don't have, this is our sacrifice, basically. This is our labor of love, right? We get into these things, brothers have different gifts, prayer, exhortation, healing, languages, so on and so forth, all these different things to actually, comfort Jake, in their in the midst of understanding, on how to actually deal, being in captivity, right? And knowing that there's going to be an end to all this, right? But Jake doesn't actually. A lot of our people don't actually appreciate, this sacrifice. Jake is a very, very. From what I've noticed, I think a lot of our people are very, very ungrateful. But that's pretty much the point. I kind of just wanted to. Oh, let me get this one. This one in Sirach. And I guess I'll close it off with this one. Just bear with me. Okay, this is Sirach 38, verse 24. And it says, Wisdom of a learned man cometh by opportunity of leisure, and he that hath little business shall become wise, right? So, we take this opportunity to actually, when we have some, I guess what you call like free time, and, we're constantly, going into, what's going on in current events, take this opportunity to be able to edify the body, so on and so forth, right? So, anyways, hopefully this video was edifying. I didn't want to make this video too long, but just the importance of laboring, and sometimes some days it doesn't, you won't be 100% every day, if I'm being completely honest, right? I think a lot of our brothers can attest to this. In the last couple of weeks, different brothers have been going through different sorts of affliction, demons jumping on them, and illnesses, and headaches, and whatever it is, in the body, and all this kind of stuff. The earthly tabernacle presses down the soul, right? But we just have that that mentality to continuously continue to actually labor, right? So anyways, Lord's word, this was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Till next time, I say Shalom.